Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. We have a quick episode scheduled for you all today. Recently, we just want to talk about what's happening with this 90-day tariff pause and on a portion of tariffs that were publicized originally publicized on April 2nd as of last week, Wednesday. So our goal here is to run through what actually changed, the presumed reasoning why, the trade community's response, as well as the current recommendations for navigating this extremely uncertain international trade environment. So if you haven't joined us before, my name is Jason Brand. I am the Director of Outreach and Partner Development here at Supply Chain Solutions. And it is our goal to provide the best end-to-end solutions for our customers. We really like to create a custom design around our customers' shipping, plans. And yeah, you've really got to get involved. Reach out to us to learn more. So first and foremost, if you are like any of my friends, any of my family, or my coworkers, that is, you've probably been frantically checking your 401ks almost hourly. And I'm sure you've noticed that healthy bump back up to normalcy that we witnessed yesterday. And it's kind of, that was the stock market's response to President Donald Trump's 90-day pause on a portion of those tariffs that started rolling out over the weekend. So the official announcement was actually made by the president on Truth Social. It was not accompanied by any immediate official press release or statement from the White House or any other government official agency for that matter. So it was causing a bit of confusion for us, our teams, even our customers as well. We were kind of throwing things around like, is this actual? Is this happening? What's the implementation? What's going on? But in that same social post, he also mentioned that he was increasing tariffs on Chinese goods as well, pushing the current number all the way up to 125%, which, speaking from a standpoint of a few of our current U.S. clients, that is a truly crippling level for most businesses that are relying on Chinese suppliers. But we are, brace yourself, because we're already hearing the rumblings that tariff number could actually increase again over the next 30 days. So I want to say sit tight, but really don't sit tight, quite frankly. You definitely, if you are still shipping out of China, if you are reliant on China for your supplies, you really need to have a plan B. You really need to work with your logistics company. Reach out to us. We can kind of walk you through what some of our other customers are doing, what we are working on, kind of what our short-term strategies are. I'll kind of give you my recommendations here at the end as well. So first question about this whole situation happening right now is why? Why did the 90-day pause occur? Well, the reason why, according to the executive order that was posted, and I'm basically going to try to nearly direct quote this, is more than 75 trading partners have engaged with the United States to address non-reciprocal trade agreements. And in recognition of their efforts to align with the U.S. economic and national security interests, the additional tariffs imposed by Executive Order 14257 will be suspended for 90 days for these countries. Now, make sure you subscribe to the SES alerts and email list. We're going to actually send out the 75 countries that are included. We're also going to send out what their quote unquote general tariff level is going to be for the next 90 days, just so you have an idea. It is also, if you need help subscribing to that, because sometimes just saying it audio visual without a visual aid can be a little challenging. 75 countries, for example. But if you need some help subscribing to that, reach out to me. I'll point you in the right direction. So that was the impetus for the change. A lot of people have discussed maybe the stock market was playing into it. He did go on yesterday to speak about how some people were reacting a little bit knee-jerkingly, and he didn't want that reaction. But also, if we think about what's happened in the past couple tariff implementations, particularly when we look at Canada and Mexico, the announced date has come, the tariffs have been implemented, and then a 30-day kind of window has been introduced. Obviously, these tariffs are much more wide-reaching. It wouldn't make sense for a 30-day window, especially to negotiate so many trade agreements. And so given a 90-day window, I think we're going to see the exact same pattern that we've seen with Canada and Mexico in the past. What that means is at the end of this tunnel, we will have higher tariffs than we have right now. And so from a short-term strategy basis, what you should consider is utilizing this time at this moment to get some of the products in to sustain you for at least the next 6 months. If it follows that same pattern, which we are suspecting it will. And then also we've discussed in these past episodes that the 10% tariff level, it's substantially less than any tariff level Donald Trump has issued really on any good or item over the years, at least any final tariff level he's issued. And so what we're actually expecting for those is they're likely going to stay put. It's likely just going to be a new level of doing business with the U.S. So you need to consider if you are shipping to a country that has that 10% tariff level, consider that the new cost of doing business and do your evaluations based on that 10% tariff level. These are our recommendations at this moment, but you have to remember, obviously, these things are changing quite frequently. If anything is probably happening out of this, I think everyone's got to buy the art of the deal just to really get an idea of the mindset behind some of these aggressive changes. Now, let's move on to some of the other things that were issued in this. Actually, two executive orders that came out this week. One came out, and then a following one really edited and increased some of the numbers from the previous one. So another area, and this is from the executive order that was titled Modifying Reciprocal Tariff Rates to Reflect Trading Partner Retaliation and Alignment. In Section 4, that was titled De Minimis Tariff Increase. And it also stated that there's now going to be an increase to the ad valorem rate of duty. Last week, that ad valorem was set at 30%. On the 8th of this week, it was moved up to 90%. And as of yesterday, the final figure, at least for now, is set to 120%. In terms of items that are moving into the U.S. through the United States Postal Service that have duties associated with those products, generally speaking, and be considered de minimis, but in this situation, coming in via parcel, via the Postal Service as well. Last week, the 2nd, there was an announced duty rate for those items of at least $25 to be implemented on May 2nd. That was planned on the original plan, was set to escalate to $75 on June 1st. Now, as of the 8th, this week, that was changed to $50 starting May 2nd and then escalating to $150 on June 1st. And now, as of yesterday, that was increased again. So now we're going to see an $150 per any dutiable good coming in through the United States Postal Service. And that's going to escalate to $200 by June 1st. So to be very clear, this is it's not only doing away with the de minimis rule, it's really trying to push a lot of the dutiable goods out of the international parcel realm and into the higher volume shipping modes. And now you got to remember that these de minimis changes are only affecting China and Hong Kong in the beginning, but it was stated originally, the plan is China and Hong Kong come first, then it's rolling out internationally in the months following. So likely by the end of the year, we will see something similar to what's happening to China and Hong Kong happening internationally, probably just across the board. These numbers that are associated with China and Hong Kong are very reflective to the current state of all of this trade aggression towards China, quite frankly. So we likely, when this is done away with, these ad valorem numbers, also these Postal Service numbers, we're expecting to be at least 50% less than what we're seeing right now. Now, what I just kind of discussed and what was really made clear is that obviously a lot of pressure and a lot of attention has been pointed at China, and a lot of critics opposed to some of the things that have been happening from the tariffs, but particularly the really extremely high tariffs on China have started to say that these tactics will force China into developing its secondary markets and will strengthen its local sphere of influence. But, to really understand the dynamics behind that and really the economics behind that, we've got to kind of dive into that in a separate episode. The Trump administration said they believe the exact opposite. They believe the swift and aggressive changes do not allow them the time or resources required to develop those markets in a meaningful way. So there's really these two very opposite approaches on that. Anyway, that was our quick update. We do have a lot happening this week. There's a couple business community members who had some pushback to these changes, as I think many of us have expected. I mean, if you're shipping or importing internationally, you were directly affected in some way or another. But we're going to wait for kind of the general consensus to come together, and we'll talk about that in the following weeks. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jason Brand. Make it a great week.